Story 1. I dislike it when people have extremely poor literacy skills and are paid significantly more than I am each year. I understand it's not a true indicator of their intelligence, but I was always taught in school that I would not succeed unless I had good grammar and could spell correctly. Story 2. Posting about their children and where they attend school. Utilizing young children for content creation. I don't want to judge other people's parenting, but I really dislike it. Story 3. People who give their kids trendy names like McKinley or Jackson may find the name cute while they are young, but it could seem odd when they are in their 60s. Story 4. People who buy dogs that shouldn't have been bred, such as double merles and fluffy French bulldogs, contribute to a problem. I love all dogs, and it's not their fault, but we have failed them. Story 5. People stop shopping carts in an aisle and then stand on the other side of the same aisle, blocking the passage for everyone else trying to shop. It is particularly frustrating when they hold onto their cart with an extended arm. Story 6. I have a story to share. I am being treated for skin cancer on my face, and a recent procedure left me with bright red blotches, which I hope will fade. While walking around downtown yesterday, I noticed people scowling at me and not making eye contact. When I got home and looked in the mirror, I realized I could be mistaken for a meth addict. So, lesson learned, don't judge people by their appearances. I am deeply touched by the compassionate replies. Thank you so much. Skin cancer has been a painful experience, but I am grateful to have medical care and hopeful I will soon be back to normal. Story 7. People who use social media as a diary have no sense of privacy, posting their children along with details about their grade and teacher, and overly sharing personal information. Additionally, some parents give their child a tablet as soon as they are able to hold it. Story 8. When they are not managing their children in public. I understand that parenting is challenging, and the exhaustion and burnout are real, but I really dislike when children make that screeching sound they sometimes do. Story 9. When they don't even attempt to park between the lines. I don't know what their story is, but I want to know who approved giving them a driver's license. Story 10. People who are overly patriotic can often be influenced by limited exposure to other countries or strong propaganda. While it's understandable to have a positive view of one's own country, this perspective may prevent individuals from recognizing the positives in other nations and the negatives in their own. Story 11. Hustle culture feels brainwashed to me, as if my value as a person is exclusively determined by how much money I make, while upward mobility is largely a myth. Hustle culture serves as a justification for capitalism, with people drinking the Kool-Aid and failing to succeed. They desperately cling to the idea of a meritocracy but end up burning themselves out. It's sad because I've seen people get destroyed by it. Shark Tank, the television show, exemplifies hustle culture, featuring many desperate employees presenting desperate ideas in hopes of joining the ownership class, realizing that no one truly gets rich from a job. Hustle culture makes us sick, tired, and desperate without making anyone richer. It's pure propaganda. Story 12. Having more children than they can afford. I don't mean people who have fallen on hard times, but when someone who is receiving social assistance and can barely afford rent announces a pregnancy, I judge. Story 13. People with poor grammar in leadership roles earn significantly more than I do. Screaming children. Story 14. Bad driving is a poor choice on my part because my driving can be just as bad, if not worse, at times. We all speed or inadvertently cut people off sometimes, but there is definitely a subconscious bias in believing it is acceptable when you do it and unacceptable when others do. Story 15. People who join long waiting lists to purchase designer dogs from breeders. Individuals who get divorced and quickly enter new relationships without taking time for self-reflection. Story 16. People who litter demonstrate a lack of consideration. When they discard their McDonald's trash out of the car window onto the road, it reflects poorly on their character. I openly judge this behavior. Are they unable to find a better solution for their waste than to toss it on the road for everyone else to witness? Can't they wait until the next stop to dispose of it properly? It seems more likely that it's a case of thoughtless negligence. Story 17. People who do not leash their dogs, or who have their dogs on leashes, but still allow them to approach other people or dogs should be more considerate. Not everyone appreciates dog slobber, and some individuals may be afraid. Additionally, some dogs might pose a risk of aggression. It is important to keep your dog to yourself. Story 18. People who do not speak to children with respect or awareness of their developmental capacities should meet them where they are. Stop trying to control them because of your own lack of emotional regulation. Story 19. Being uneducated. In the year 2025, with smartphones and nearly unlimited knowledge just a few taps away in your pocket, it makes me think that a person lacks common sense. How can anyone blindly trust what they are told or hear without verifying sources or researching themselves? I don't know if it makes me elitist, but even most individuals experiencing homelessness have phones. Story 20. I admit that I sometimes wrongly assume that everyone who is religious is either uninformed, lacks critical thinking skills, or is mentally weak. Story 21. Allowing your kids to have phones or tablets as toddlers or young children can lead to concerns. I believe that it can negatively impact parenting. Story 22. Their spatial awareness in public places is concerning. People block elevator exits while trying to get on, leave shopping carts in the middle of aisles, park cars blocking sidewalks, or stop to have conversations that obstruct the entire sidewalk. Additionally, there are individuals who stand at crosswalks with no intention of crossing the street. Please be mindful and clear the way. Story 23. People who don't use the following correctly. Asterisk there slash there slash there. Asterisk then slash then. Asterisk where slash where. Asterisk it slash its. Asterisk are slash is. Asterisk whose slash whose. There may be more to add to this list. I am not even an English speaker. Story 24. When someone says something not very godly or someone's behavior isn't very Christian, not everybody is Christian. Story 25. People with nice haircuts, manicured nails, and new tattoos often have brand name items, while their children may wear coats 4 sizes too small and have ripped school shoes. This is even more noticeable in the middle of winter when the child lacks a hat or proper coat, while the adult wears a brand new parka. Additionally, smoking at the school gate is concerning. Story 26. When a parent talks harshly to their children, the child will not respect the parent if the parent does not show respect in return. Story 27. People who say they hate all animals may have preferences, and while I understand it's wrong to judge, it just feels like a red flag to me. Story 28. When a middle-class person has an overly expensive car or truck, I ask myself, who are you trying to impress? You should put that extra money into your retirement account. I know, my bad. Story 29. How fast their windshield wipers are going when it's raining. I don't know why, but when I see someone's wipers going very fast when it's just sprinkling, I think they're being dramatic. Story 30. My neighbors love their pit bulls so much that they keep them in pens smaller than 3 square meters for 24 hours a day and bark at anything they see. Story 31. People who marry too young often struggle with self-identity. Marrying at 22 can lead to significant challenges in understanding who you truly are. Additionally, marrying simply because of an unplanned pregnancy can create unnecessary complications. It's important to reflect on the motivations behind such decisions. Story 32. If they have more than 4 children, barely anyone in this country can reliably raise that many. Most end up not being good parents because they spread themselves too thin. Story 33. Being a fan of anime and virtual YouTubers to a concerning degree, particularly among adult men, raises some issues. If you are an adult man who collects figurines, stickers, toys, and body pillows of female characters, especially those that resemble children or are depicted as sexualized animals, uses terms like waifu without irony, spends excessive time online obsessing over virtual YouTubers, including attending their concerts, heavily sexualizes animated characters, and uses Japanese words and phrases out of context despite not speaking the language, I am sorry, but I am judging you, and I am also very concerned about your mental state. Story 34. People who go out drinking seem to only want to do that. Once in a while with friends is fine, but do you want to get drunk every time we hang out? It feels like some individuals make drinking their entire personality, and it becomes difficult to have a proper conversation with them unless they are slightly buzzed. I start to wonder if I am actually talking to the real you. Story 35. I understand that this may make me seem inconsiderate, and I am working on this perspective. However, I find it challenging when encountering individuals with very limited food preferences. I am not referring to those with texture sensitivities, but rather adults who show no interest in diverse cuisines and continually choose only items like chicken fingers, fries, macaroni and cheese, and a few vegetables like green beans and corn. My husband has a somewhat limited palate, but he is occasionally open to trying new dishes. Yet, I can't help but feel a bit of irritation, though I don't express it, when he opts for the blandest options on the menu. I recognize that I should focus on my own choices. I am aware that this attitude may not be ideal. Story 36. Lip, breast, and butt implants are personal choices. I believe everyone has the right to do whatever they want with their bodies, and if they want to get implants, they should. If it makes them happy, that is wonderful. However, I sometimes find myself judging them based on their appearance, and then I judge myself for that judgment. Creates a constant inner conflict. Story 37. As a healthcare worker, I encounter people who don't know what medications they take or their purposes. I often see men come in with their wives or girlfriends, looking to them for information about their medications while she fills out the paperwork and does the talking for them. I'm referring to capable men, by the way. Story 38. People who smoke cigarettes and complain about being broke, especially if they prioritize spending money on cigarettes over other necessities. Story 39. People who don't recycle when it's easy to do so are displaying ignorance and entitlement. I'm not referring to extreme recycling or striving for zero waste, and I know that recycling alone isn't saving the planet. For example, throwing a single-use plastic water bottle into the trash instead of the recycling bin nearby is frustrating. Story 40. I received negative feedback for commenting something similar on a different thread, even though I fully admitted it makes me a bad person to think this. However, I secretly judge people for announcing a pregnancy very early. Story 41. People who deliberately view biased news outlets and engage in political arguments with individuals who are peacefully and civilly disagreeing with them. Story 42. When people lack empathy, I am aware that there are mental disorders that are incurable and can cause a severe lack of empathy, or that abuse and trauma can lead to a lack of empathy. However, I dislike when people show little to no empathy regarding issues such as basic human rights. Story 43. People who own large dogs in apartments face challenges. These big animals want to be outside, galloping through a field, but instead, they often spend most of the day lying on the floor. When you get home from work and take the dog out to relieve itself, it can be frustrating when it runs off, simply because it is so happy to finally be outside. Story 44. How clean your house is. Have some pride in your belongings. It's not about being high-end. It's about being clean and tidy. Story 45. People are buying designer dogs instead of adopting from a shelter and moving without taking their pets with them. Oh, were those supposed to be secret? I failed then. Story 46. Hand washing. Right up until COVID-19, I didn't pay attention or notice. I do now. I cringe whenever I am in a public restroom. The number of people who use the facilities and walk right out without washing their hands. Story 47. People who constantly drive in the left lane on the highway when they are not passing anyone seem inconsiderate and selfish, showing little regard for other drivers. Story 48. I know this makes me a bad person, but there are people who are morbidly obese. I am curvy too. Don't get me wrong. Some individuals can barely walk, and their stomachs hang down to their knees. The show My 600 Pounds Life disgusts me. I realize some cases might stem from legitimate medical conditions. My mother, who weighed between 400 and 500 pounds, would drink or use drugs and pass out on the floor because no one could pick her up, even with multiple people. She resembled a beached whale and never made any effort to help herself with her weight, just complained and ate more junk food. I do understand, in some ways, how it happens. I just silently judge. I would never say anything to anyone, of course. Story 49. Picky eaters. Before addressing sensory processing issues, It's important to recognize that neurodivergence is a genuine concern and not a choice. However, if your inability to eat anything other than steak and chips at a restaurant accompanies a strong dislike for unfamiliar cuisine, then it seems likely that your upbringing involved a consistent diet of chicken nuggets, suggesting you may have been raised in an environment lacking culinary diversity or with excessive indulgence. Story 50. People who don't return their shopping carts are expecting someone else to clean up their mess, which reveals a lot about their character. Story 51. I will be criticized for this. However, the strong small-town Massachusetts accent makes me want to escape. I associate it with many other negative aspects, such as rudeness and profanity. Story 52. Expecting me to be excited about your dog? Sorry, but I would prefer if you moved it away from me. I don't want my leg licked. Story 53. I know I shouldn't, but I always judge people's tattoos. I'm sorry, not everyone should be a tattoo artist because they can't always do a good job. When I see a bad one, I silently judge and say to myself, it looks awful. Especially with face and neck tattoos, I always think they look bad. I know it's wrong of me to judge someone for a tattoo. It's their body and everyone is free to do what they want with it, or at least they should be. However, in my opinion, a lot of tattoos people have just looked terrible. Story 54. People who are emotionally close with their family are fortunate, as I do not have that. Individuals with long nails, primarily men. People who smoke cigarettes. Story 55. I must be honest. This is a personal issue, but when I am using public transportation and see someone standing right next to the doors while there is space for them to stand further inside, it frustrates me. By standing next to the door, they obstruct both incoming and outgoing passengers. Even though they could easily move further in, they don't. I feel a sudden surge of irritation, wondering why they choose to be an obstacle in their own life, and I sometimes have the urge to ask them to move. Story 56. People who claim to love animals but say they hate cats can be quite perplexing. While it's natural for people to have preferences, it can be irksome to hear someone declare, "No, I hate all cats." When asked why, the reasons often boil down to statements like, "They don't come when you call," or "They look like they want to be petted and then bite you out of nowhere." Many people expect cats to behave like dogs, and when they don't, the reaction is often, "Cats are evil." They tend to refuse to learn about cat behavior. I often interpret this as a sign that they prefer animals they can easily control or dominate. Being a dog person is a completely different matter. Story 57. Sometimes I am in a grocery checkout line and I assess what people have purchased. It is eye-opening how much someone can overspend their grocery budget on soda and processed food. Story 58. Being poor students, we often received less than 20% on tests consistently. I remember a classmate who would always sleep in class while admitting he went to bed at 3 or 4 a.m. In every test, he would score around 10 to 20% and paid almost no attention during lessons, repeatedly asking the same questions several times. Story 59-1. People give their children iPhones or iPads at a very young age. You are negatively impacting their development. People who complain about being broke but then spend money on unnecessary items. You are struggling to pay your $800 monthly rent but somehow have money for the latest products that just came out? Story 60. People who do not attempt to spell correctly or use proper punctuation make themselves appear irresponsible and lead me to doubt their credibility. Spell check is available for everyone. Additionally, the idea that you understood me, so it's fine, only reinforces that impression. At least try to present yourself as an adult. Story 61. I don't think this makes me a bad person, but I do believe in the importance of separating religion and politics. People who use religion to promote harmful political views. Story 62. I judge people for being judgmental. I know I'm a hypocrite and I need to stop. I promise I'm working on it. Story 63. Multiple children, especially from different fathers, can be a struggle, yet birth control and condoms are widely available. This is even more apparent in areas without abortion restrictions. Story 64. I believe that no one has the right to tell another person what to do or how to feel. Such individuals often lack a genuine understanding of reality, and their intelligence can be surprisingly low, even among those with degrees and qualifications. They contribute to division and hatred in society. Religion should be reevaluated and set aside for the benefit of humanity. Story 65. I have an acute sense of smell. Most people are unaware of how excessive their use of perfume is. Worse still is smelling like their detergent. It shocks me how many people I walk past daily who smell like a laundromat. Story 66. Religious beliefs. I know people don't actively choose what they believe in, but it is really depressing that many people adhere to homophobic and misogynistic religions. Story 67. People who smoke cigarettes are aware that it's an addiction and know that quitting is difficult. However, the smell is very unpleasant and harmful to the environment. There is a person in my apartment building who smokes off the property but leaves a pervasive odor of cigarette smoke wherever he goes. It is genuinely off-putting that I can smell him in the hallway hours after he has passed through. If it were body odor that lingered for so long, people would be embarrassed, so why is there no shame associated with the lingering smell of smoke? Additionally, the issue of secondhand smoke is concerning. Story 68. People who credit God for someone else's hard work often overlook the effort that individual has put in. Whenever I achieved something in school, I would hear praise directed at God, as if he were solely responsible for my success, when I was the one who worked hard to earn those achievements. Story 69. When people have more than 4 children, it seems like poor planning or no planning at all. Story 70. People who frequently seek assistance with food and rent, yet consistently maintain well-groomed hair and nails, and acquire a kitten they cannot afford to spay. Story 71. Having more children than can be managed and complaining about the lack of community, despite knowing there was no support when you decided to have too many children. Story 72. People who are comfortable with their children throwing tantrums or being disruptive in public can be challenging to understand. I recognize that some children have special needs and others face behavioral issues. However, I still can't help but feel uneasy when it happens. It seems to be a natural instinct for me to feel annoyed. Story 73. Poor grammar and pronunciation, as well as malapropisms, can be problematic. For example, saying wreak havoc instead of wreak havoc. I may unfairly judge others as lacking education and literacy. Yes, it would make me unkind to speak out about it. Story 74. Bad grammar frustrates me. People who impose their religion on others frustrate me. I am a Christian and I have never understood this. I have never felt the need to share anything about religion with anyone unless they asked me or initiated the conversation. I just do not understand it. I was always taught that religion and politics should be kept private unless someone specifically requests your opinion. Story 75. Getting married young, having children when they cannot afford it, and engaging in relationships with large age gaps are common topics. There is additional judgment if someone does all three, which is often seen in Christian communities. Additionally, being Christian can influence perceptions on these matters. Story 76. Lack of accountability. It is now considered mature not to take responsibility for bad actions and to blame others instead. The innocent party is expected to sacrifice their good reputation so that your reputation can remain intact. Story 77. Cigarette smokers. I often perceive them as lower class and uninformed. Tobacco smoking is a psychological trick where individuals believe that smoking relaxes them, when in reality it merely alleviates their nicotine addiction temporarily. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.